Join us for an action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball, where we review the 2023 season for the World Series champion Texas Rangers.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Sports Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one resource of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominic Martino. You can find me on Twitter at DomMartinoFB. Here, as always, with my brother, my co-host, my partner in crime, Matthew Ane, and you can find him on Twitter at Matthew_Ane. If you're listening on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you do that for us. And guess what? If you do, you have an opportunity to win a special prize. Just take a screenshot of your rating and review and email it to us at fantasymds@gmail.com. Or if it's easier, just DM us with your screenshot on Twitter or Instagram. And if you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, please hit that little bell below. It subscribes to the channel and also drops you a notification every time we put out a new episode. And guys, real quick, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. With FanDuel, make every moment more right now. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. And all right, guys, it's all wrapped up with a nice little bow. The 2023 baseball season is over. The Texas Rangers are your World Series champions. They took out the Diamondbacks, who had been very sneaky this postseason. And we got a lot of names to talk about. And Matt, I think we start with the World Series MVP, Mr. Corey Seager.
Oh yeah, and might I add, I said that they would be in the dance. Coming from the AL, I did call this. I didn't expect them to win the whole thing, being that I didn't think they were going to beat the Phils. But no, the Diamondbacks had other plans, and they said, no, we're going to lose miserably to them. So good job. Good job, Diamondbacks, being a waste. But congratulations, Corey Seager. Fantastic season. This team is going to be dangerous for quite a few years. A lot of good players on this team.
Sure.
Starting with Corey Seager, who led the way with a fantastic season. 477 at-bats, 88 runs, 42 doubles, 33 home runs, 96 ribs, 2 stolen bases, batted .327 with an OPS of 1013. Fantastic job, Corey Seager. And if you didn't miss about 3 weeks to a month early in the season, I think these stats would have been even more ridiculous. Corey Seager has just been phenomenal. This is exactly what we thought he was going to be. When he was getting the call up early, he's just been getting better each and every year. Year 2 on this Texas team and really, built upon last year and kind of really took it to new levels. And I think next year is going to be even better. And he's only 30, which is the even more incredible part. Corey Seager is going to be what a player for next year for 2024. I think I got him as like my number 3 shortstop going into the year, if I'm not mistaken.
Matt, love everything that you said. We're on point. I have Corey Seager as my number 4 shortstop going into next year. This year, he finished fantasy baseball regular, 5x5, head-to-head roto as the 19th player overall, 14th hitter. Sky is the limit for Seager. Once they banned that shift, we all knew that, the batting average had potential to be very, very, good. That 245 batting average last year, I think pretty much everybody knew it was a fluke. And Corey Seager, just monster season. Once again, shout out to Corey Seager. Shout out to the Texas Rangers. What a year for them, literally led by Corey Seager. Just pretty much going to be talking about 12-man league, probably early second-round pick next year for Corey Seager. Just doesn't steal bases, but he's going to be above and beyond in every other single major category. Let's move on to a player that honestly probably was the postseason overall MVP for the Rangers. Let's talk about Adolis Garcia. Unfortunately, he hurt his oblique throughout the World Series. I'm pretty sure he'll be fine for opening day next year. But this guy was dominating the postseason, putting up some crazy home run numbers, RBI numbers, and just a strong season from Adolis. Finally has been, pretty consistent over the last 3 seasons. Big power this year for Garcia in 148 games, had 555 at-bats. He had 108 runs, 29 doubles, 39 homers, 107 RBIs. The steals have went down for Garcia. The Rangers as a whole really didn't steal as much this year. The 245 batting average, but that's what you're going to get. He's a career 244 batting average guy, so you're going to sacrifice in that department. I have Garcia next year as my number 12 outfielder. Just a lot of upside here. He's going to be 31 next year. I don't think the steals are going to be there, so you're going to want to pair him with a couple of steals guys in your lineup going into next year. But Adolis Garcia, another monster year. Reason why the Texas Rangers were as good as they were.
Yeah, you really think they're going to be out? He's not going to steal as much next year?
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm going to check his sprint speed and see if it's a sprint speed thing or if it's more of a team philosophy, but I'm pretty sure the Rangers as a whole, steals were down for them this season, but I don't see him bouncing back up into that 20 range. Honestly, I see him being more of maybe a 15 steals kind of guy, especially with all these injuries he's had, over the past couple of years with the oblique and everything. I don't know how much they're going to let him run, but if you think I'm wrong, let me know, brother. I'm always open for that conversation.
No, actually, the only reason I'm asking is because I'm kind of seeing the trend, because you look at even our next guy here. I'll just bring the name up, Marcus Semien.
Yeah,
he was down about 10 stolen bases this year. Actually, 11.
That's what I was saying. I think it was more of a team thing this year, specifically with less steals. But as per each specific guy, I think it might be a different case with each one. I know with Garcia specifically, though, I don't see him being an over 20 steal guy again.
No, I could totally see that, especially since he's shown the power. And, I could totally see him hitting almost 3-4 spot and just kind of swapping with Seager and moving Evan Carter up to leadoff. Because, that kid's got speed for days.
Yeah, so, another big name we're going to talk about.
Yeah. So, I think that if anything, that guy's going to get the green light. But, we'll talk about him in a minute. But let me talk about Marcus Semien. I just kind of wanted to, had that conversation real quick. But Semien had a fantastic year, and quite honestly, obviously he was great for Roto, but I think for points leagues he was even better. You look at his total at bats, 670, 122 runs, fantastic, 40 doubles, 4 triples, 29 bombs, 100 ribs, 14 stolen bases, 72 walks to 110 strikeouts. Batted 276 with an OPS of 826. And the reason why I say that he was probably more valuable for points leagues is, one, the double numbers were astronomical, and the walk to strikeout ratio is just incredible. So I feel like, honestly, and this is just strictly for points leagues, he's got to be a top 12 pick. Quite honestly, just based off the walk to strikeout ratio, that double numbers, along with the power numbers that have increased this year. I think that, and the runs and ribbies, Marcus Semien is somebody that I would probably draft in the first round, if not early second round in points leagues. In Roto leagues, I like him in the second, but late second. I don't like drafting my second basemans all that high, because there's quite a few I like this year. I get a little bit later. But anyway, Marcus Semien, fantastic season, and quite honestly, an all-out stud.
Yeah, Matt, honestly, you pretty much took the words out of my mouth there. Monster year for Semien. He is getting a little bit older. He's going to be 33 next year. But honestly, since 2018, he's been so consistently on the field. Not saying he's due for an injury, but you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if at 33 he misses one. But I also wouldn't be surprised if he plays another 150-plus games. He's been so consistent over the last few years. Even honestly in regular Roto head-to-head categories, even I have Semien as my number 2 second baseman, just because I know what I'm getting. It's pretty much guaranteed in this lineup. He's going to be fantastic. Not much else to really say after all that. But before we get on to some of the young guns and move into pitching here, we do have a quick ad for you guys.
Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. How you doing? if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time than now to get in the action. The app is super easy to use with wide ranges of betting options, including spread, player props, over and unders, and much more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to kick off this NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. But all right, Dom, it's all you, boy. Take this next one.
Yeah, I was hoping that you might pass this one my way. I appreciate it. Let's talk about one of my favorite young players in the league, Evan Carter. Kid's just an absolute stud. He's going to be, honestly, in my opinion, this kid's going to be a superstar. He's going to be very, very good. He's going to be somebody after his monster postseason performance that might go a little bit higher than we hope or we want. But honestly, if you want him, you're going to have to pull the trigger. I have Evan Carter. It might be a little ambitious. My number 21 overall outfielder. I just think this guy is the limit. Let's just talk about what he did as a 20-year-old in 23 games. In the majors this year, he had 62 at-bats, 15 runs, 4 doubles, a triple, 5 homers, 12 RBIs, 3 steals, 12 walks to 24 strikeouts, and a 306 batting average. Evan Carter's just been a stud every stop in the minors throughout his career. Good steals guy. I think he's going to grow into a little bit more power. But honestly, I think next season I wouldn't be afraid to say 30-plus steals, 25 homers, 22 homers in that range with a very, very strong batting average. He's 6'2", 190, get up to 6'2", 205, 210, just shredded muscle. This kid's really going to be a force to reckon with. He had 26 steals in the minors in 2023 before he got the call, 288 batting average. Before year before that, in 2022, had 28 steals in 106 games, 295 batting average. He knows how to take a walk. He knows how to put the ball where, the defense isn't. Once again, he had a very good postseason. He had, in the World Series, he had 6 hits. He had 286. With 3 doubles. Just what more can you ask from a 20-year-old man? I'm drooling at this point, so I'm just gonna pass it off to you.
Nah, I'm kind of right there with you. I mean, he shows all the tangibles that are in the making for a really great, young prospect to have his first really great rookie year. Where, God, if he doesn't win, rookie of the year next year, I would be deeply surprised. Like, he is incredible. I love what he did coming into the league with the 306 batting average on the season. The walk to strikeout ratio is fantastic. Like you were saying, the kid has some great plate discipline. Like, these are all good characteristics of someone that is in the makings of being elite. And you know what? I love the fact that too, he's a 5 category contributor at least.
Sure.
So, I mean, I'm going to be drooling over him too. You just kind of beat me to the punch. I have him ranked 29. I think I'm going to have to move him up. It's just,
I mean, honestly, after the kid showed out in the World Series and the playoffs on, the biggest stage in the MLB, it's people are just going to remember that. And then even when we get to the Diamondbacks, we're going to talk about Ketel Marte. People are just going to remember that this guy had a monster postseason that always drives the price up of guys that do well in the postseason.
Yeah, the only thing I'm going to be scared of with Evan Carter, who I'm a fan and I believe in, and again, shows all the stepping stones of somebody that's going to take that big step, is I just don't want us to overpay for him too and end up with like a Pena, where like Pena was a disappointment this year.
Yes.
So like,
very well said, Matt.
So with that, like I'm going to move Evan Carter up. I'm confident in him, but also too that he's going to be one of the more riskier picks, being that he is unproven and being that you're going to have to pay the World Series premium for him. So Evan Carter is somebody we're going to love to debate coming in. And hopefully some of our cool guests that we're going to be announcing soon can talk about a little bit more. But we'll get into who's coming on the show later in the week. But anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about one of my favorite rookies this year, Josh Young. Dude, I got some love for Josh Young, man, because this kid just came up, and I'm going to say this. I didn't like him coming into the season. I didn't think it was real. I didn't think he was going to translate the way he did, but boy, oh boy, did he. And when he did, because he just kind of blew me away. I'm very impressed. All right. This season, 478 at bats, 75 runs, 25 doubles, a triple, 23 bombs, 70 ribs, a stolen base. Walk out to strikeout ratio is atrocious. 30 walks to 151 strikeouts. Batted 266 though. and had an OPS of 781. Now, here's the thing. 266 is what he hit exactly in 2022. I think that this is it. He's not going to hit that 326 we saw in 21 or 2019 300. I think 366 to, 266 to 275 is a fair range for him. The power is absolutely legitimate. 40 home run upside, if not more. Like, legitimately, he could be the Pete Alonso light of third base. Like, that's kind of what I'm going to give the comp of Josh Young is to, or better yet, the Josh Donaldson of heyday.
Come on, you had it right there for you. The next Austin Riley.
I don't know.
That's my comp for him. That's
Austin Riley hits better on the batting average on front. So
yeah.
So I it's a little bit different. But anyway, I love Josh Young. I think this kid is going to be fantastic to the point and to the tune of my third base rankings. Okay. Where he does not have a 5 category contribution. He is still my number 6 third baseman. And that's with not being a 5-tool guy. So, and quite honestly, he has upside to just literally be Pete Alonso at third base with just like a massive home runs and ribbies totals, because the power is legitimate and that team around him, every guy we've talked about before him and guys we aren't mentioning, are all going to contribute into his success. Josh Young is going to have a great 2024.
Yeah, Matt, you honestly pretty much said everything there is to say about Young. Just a monster in the making. The kid is 6'2", 214. That's where if you see Evan Carter get to, he's hanging out with Young in the offseason, and they're getting, in that gym and just doing, what they need to do in there. Once again, both guys are going to have, limitless upside. Young, you're going to play more of that power RBI combo, as he's going to be hitting, probably around maybe 5th in that lineup. Batting average upside, it is there. Once again, if he works on that plate discipline, you got the guys on the team to show you, Corey Seager and the rest of those dudes over there, those veterans that can really get in there and work with Young and Carter. I think both of them are going to be monsters. I have Young at 7 in my rankings. And once again, when Matt and I talk about our rankings are geared towards 5x5 head-to-head category leagues. So, with just your major stats and stuff like that. So when we're talking about our rankings, that's what we're, going towards. We do always try and mention, guys that are going to be better in points leagues and, stuff like that. But Young, honestly, just monster upside, going to be very, very good next year. Big power dude. Let's talk about, actually, Matt, I'm going to switch these two guys. I'm going to switch the 2 catchers there, because you like one more than I do and I like one more than you do. Let me take Mitch Garver. Mitch Garver, I believe, is a free agent this upcoming offseason. We'll see if he stays there with Texas. I would love to see him, stay there in Texas, do a little backup catching and play DH most of the other time when Heim isn't catching. But when Mitch Garver is healthy, and that's a big when and if Mitch Garver is healthy, one of the best catchers in baseball. He did catch enough to retain, catcher eligibility for next year. 87 games this year for Garver, 45 runs, 11 doubles, 19 homers, 50 RBIs. 44 walks, 82 strikeouts, better in your points leagues, and a 270 batting average. I have Mitch Garver too high at catcher. I have him 6th, but I love him. I think he's going to be so reliable when he's out there. But the thing is, when you're drafting a Mitch Garver, be prepared for an IL stint, and just be prepared that there's a total chance he gets hurt way too early and just doesn't really play as much as you need him to. But when healthy, Mitch Garver is one of the best catcher-eligible players in fantasy baseball.
No, I mean, yes, Mitch Garver, being in the fact, too, that he's going to be in DH kind of will preserve him, I feel. Something they should really do with somebody else I really like. But, throwing shade. But I think that Garver could have a great season. And if they can keep him completely out of catching and on a limited base just so he can, just give Heim some breaks, it would be really nice to see what he would do in that lineup. But I think Heim, now that I'm saying his name, I think is going to have the better season up until, he got hurt and Garver had to kind of step in and then use the backups as well to when Heim went down. Heim was playing nearly every day and it was fantastic. The numbers were phenomenal going into the first half of the season before he got injured. And the first half numbers were fantastic. 291 at bats, 43 runs, 20 doubles, 12 bombs, 59 ribs, 2 stolen bases, and he was batting 282. The problem is when he came back from the injury in that second half, it really destroyed his stats. He only had 166 at bats at that time, 18 runs, 8 doubles, 6 home runs, 36 ribs, and he batted .217. And you know what? It just took him a little bit of time because in that time too, when he did come back in September, the counting stats were starting to heat up a little bit, but the batting average still hasn't caught up to it. But I feel like Heim is going to have a monstrous second year with this team. Well, not second year. Let me actually talk about it. Monstrous full-time year for him, I feel, where he's going to have everyday play and really take off. I think we're going to see about 270, 280 batting average. I think we're going to see him hit about 25 home runs. And I think those ribbies and run numbers are just going to be so much better next year. He is, I think, my catcher 5, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think we're a little off here on Heim. I'm not as much
actually.
of a fan. I'm wow, damn. That's pretty high. I'm not nearly as much of a fan. I have Heim at 8 at catcher, and even there's a couple of debatable guys. I have to fine tune all my rankings. As Matt mentioned, I know that he did go down on the IL in July with that that wrist issue, but when he came back from it, he wasn't the same guy he was in the first half. I think the RBI numbers were a little bit boosted by this team. I don't know exactly. Hold on, let me see if I could pull up a roster resource for next year and kind of see where they have Heim hitting 7th. So I don't think the RBIs are going to be major. He's not really a monster power guy. So if you're talking about a catcher that's going to have 60 runs, 75 RBIs, right under 20 homers. And I'm not a believer in the batting average. He was never really a batting average guy in the minors. He doesn't hit the ball super hard. He doesn't, barrel it up, greatly. I think there was a little bit, this might be the outlier year for Heim when it comes to RBIs and batting average. So there is upside at, a guy who is going to be 29 next year. But once again, if I'm going to draft catcher in that range, there's just some other guys I'd rather throw my darts near. Just to throw a name out there, Yainer Diaz, who, that young catcher for Houston, who I think is going to be a beast. And then I even have Wilson Contreras of the Cardinals, who finished the season strong, going to be a second year on a new team. So, Matt and I, is one of our rules, first year on a new team, kind of get used to it. And then, Wilson Contreras, I think next year is going to have a strong year. Cardinals bounce back as well. But once again, I have Heim at 8, a little bit lower than Matt on Heim. Let's get into the starting pitchers here. Just go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
One, I hate that you're bringing me back in on Contreras. But 2, before we move on and talk about the guy that Dom wants to talk about, we have one more break for you. All right, Dom. Now it's okay to get carried away here. Go for it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll try not to take this rant as far as the last one. We're going to talk about Max Scherzer real quick. Getting old, banged up. Couldn't even really finish out the World Series with back issues. Wasn't really great this postseason. It's just starting to look closer to the end for Scherzer, at the guy who's going to be 39 next year. We saw Verlander drop off a little bit this year too. Father time, undefeated, get to everybody eventually. Where do I have Scherzer as starting pitcher for next year? I guess that's a good place to start to kind of tell you where my head's at with Scherzer. I have him at 26. I think he's going to be a mediocre SP2, maybe a high-end SP3. I think the ERA gets a little bit elevated. I think, the strikeouts are still going to be there. The whip, let's see, the whip is trending up, 1.12 this year. Still should be serviceable, still should be decent, but don't expect the ace like Max Scherzer of old. I think those days have kind of come and gone. And I wouldn't be surprised 1-2 IL stints. How many starts did he make this year? 27 starts, 152 innings for Scherzer this year with a 3.77 ERA. Just the better years, I think, have come and gone. But, shout out to Max Scherzer for being a fantasy baseball ace for a very long time.
I kind of agree with what you're saying in terms of we're not going to get the Scherzer of old days, but I still think he's going to be quite serviceable. I wouldn't say a mediocre 2. I think he's going to be a solid 2, but he's definitely not worth the 1. I won't feel comfortable leaving the draft, and I agree that we may see an IL stint. But
definitely.
I also want to put something out there that we probably are overlooking, in that he was on 2 teams last year.
Yeah,
So being able to get comfortable, let alone in a new city for the first time, when you think, okay, this is going to be my home for the next couple of years with the Mets, and then getting traded at the trade deadline to then end up at the Rangers, can throw a man off and can create some havoc in his life in order to lead to, underperforming and probably pretty fatigued also, just based off of the fact that you just moved and now you probably have a complaining family. Like, we got to move again. And then on top of that, now not even, being comfortable, not having a home and all that does play in the factor of the man. So I think that next year we're not going to see the elite, but I think that we're going to see a decent enough ERA where we're not going to be upset where we got him. And we're going to see the K numbers and whip. Like, I think Scherzer is going to be very serviceable for next year. But anyway, enough on him. Let's move on. Let's talk about Nathan Eovaldi. Evo is what I'm going to start calling him here. Pretty good season overall. Age 33 season, had 144 innings pitched. He had 132 strikeouts. He had a 3.63 ERA with a 1.139 WHIP. Now, I'm kind of like bought in on this a little bit just based off of the fact that field independent pitching is pretty lined up with his ERA. It's only about a 3.88 to a 3.63. So it's kind of legitimate. So it kind of tells me, hey, he was kind of doing it. It's also his first year on this team. And Evo has good seasons in him. Like, he hasn't had a season over four, in the fours since 2020. He's been close with damn near close to 3.75, 3.87, now 3.63. But I think now in the Rangers with the extra incentive to possibly go for a second shot at a World Series, I think that they're going to tinker with him. He's going to be also kind of just feeling like he has to work harder to do good. And I feel like he's going to be pretty good, but I'm not ranking him anywhere in my top 30. He's going to be 30 plus, maybe even in the 40s. I don't feel comfortable walking out of a draft with him as my first three pitcher options, honestly. I think 36 and above. And then I'll kind of feel comfortable just based off of the fact that he's never really been that guy. And this quite honestly, this is his best season in, a very long time. And honestly, these last couple years he's strung together good seasons, but I don't think this is going to be the real turn of the corner at age 33, because we're going to start seeing a decline. There's a short window for pitchers in their old age where they've fully matured and there's that prime, and then there's that quick die off. So Eovaldi never really had the super qualifying things for me, at least. So he's just a tier down. So again, not my favorite for my first three options as a pitcher, but a great pitcher for.
Yeah, man, I have him at SP68, but and here's the thing is that I'm going to talk very good about him. Like, I like Nathan Eovaldi. It's just there's a lot of other ways to throw that darts than at a 34-year-old Nathan Eovaldi. But I do like him, so I'm going to actually say a lot of good things about him now. So if we're going to talk about the last 4 seasons, I believe I did. Yeah, the last 4 seasons, we're going to take all of Eovaldi's numbers and mush them together. So that would be 86 starts for Eovaldi over the last 4 years, 33 wins, 19 losses, a 3.74 ERA, 484 innings, 482 strikeouts, a 3.56 FIP, which is awesome. Kind of tells you that he could even be a little bit better, and a 1.18 whip for Eovaldi over the last 4 years. Honestly, the guy's been fantastic. I just feel super safe, like SP6. Give me Eovaldi as my SP6. I think that's literally perfect. I hope the price isn't inflated because he had a pretty good postseason. We'll see where things go. I do like him. If it's your guy, I just think we know who he is. High 3 ERA, right around a K per 9, a 1.17 whip, which is all like great. But if you have a guy like that as your SP6, I think that's literally perfect. Let's try and sneak one, maybe 2 more guys in here. Let's talk about somebody who was fantastic at the beginning of the season, kind of tempered off, John Gray. I've always been a big John Gray guy, 6'4", 225, got good stuff. Thought once he left Colorado, that was it, and that was going to be the key for John Gray. But he has, really just slowed down in the second half this year. The year-long numbers for John Gray: 29 starts, 4.12 ERA, 157 innings, 142 strikeouts with a 1.29 whip. But that really doesn't tell you the story of the full season. I want to see if I could just grab his splits for you guys if my if Baseball Reference ever wants to let me, properly click this. Okay, there we go. Now it will let me click it. But he had a really strong first half, kind of just fell off in the second half. Where are those splits now? Oh Lord. This is not want to work with me. Okay, so he actually had a pretty good, it was like his first 2 months were pretty strong, especially that May. And then after that, had a mediocre June and kind of just, scrambled to the finish line. But I like John Gray. I have him ranked up, I would assume, below like Evaldi at this point. But I'm still trying to pull up the first half for second half. Okay, here we go. First half for John Gray this season: 6 wins, 5 losses, 3.29 ERA, 16 starts, 93 innings, 75 Ks with a 1.14 WHIP, and then it was a over 5 ERA with a 1.5 WHIP under a K. Oh no, actually right over a K per 9 in the second half. Looks like he might have been trying to strike too many guys out. And yeah, I have him at 72, right under Nathan Evaldi. John Gray, decent pitcher, maybe be better next year. Not banking on it though.
I'm gonna look at it like this. John Gray is just going to be, if he's there towards like, my pitcher 7 or 8, then I'll pick him. But like, honestly, even then, like at that point, I'm going to probably take dart throws on other players, probably on the upside on that. Like John Gray is going to be a great waiver wire pickup for that short stint that he's going to do good. Yeah. But he's just, in my opinion, not draftable. So, I mean, it is what it is. I just wish he would have been better since he left. Colorado, like you, but it is what it is. He can't capitalize. It's not for everybody. But with that being said, Dom, take us away.
Yeah, guys, that's all for today. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review. Also, shout out to our everydayers and new listeners for making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. Guys, we're gonna wrap up our team review series over the next week or so. After that, we're gonna do a whole bunch of different things. But thank you for tuning in, guys. Until next time, see you.
Peace.